Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today. This is a brighter outlook, I think, than when we first started this last fall, where we didn't know what was happening. Actually happened to have gotten my two vaccines, so my two shots. So that's one advantage of being older. There's not many, but that was one of them. So, take what you can get. So today we're going to be talking about resumes. That all important resume, I get them passed along through my email every day. And as you know, let me just share my screen here with you. So the most important thing is why resumes are so important is because your resume should be landing you interviews. And if it's not, then hopefully, if it is, then great. Maybe you can turn off now because that's really the important part of the resume. No matter what your format or your content, it's working for you. But if it's not, or you feel you can be getting more, you should be getting more interviews, then hopefully today's session will help you. This is not advancing. Give me a second here to. Okay, so so today's agenda, we're going to be talking about what is a resume, what's the definition, knowing your target, knowing your audience, establishing your brand, the applicant tracking system, and how to format your resume correctly, and what you should think about in terms of your content. So what is a resume? A resume is not, let me just say what it's not, where a lot of people get mistaken. It's not a data dump of everything you've done. It's not an autobiography. It's not whatever you can cram in that you can think about yourself. It's just a marketing tool that promotes the product, and the product is you. You're selling yourself. It's a strong resume proactively answers the question, why should we hire you? It's a one-page summary that shows how your experience, your work, and education have qualified you for the target or of the job in this case. And it emphasizes what is relevant in your background, clearly conveying that you are a good fit for the role and that you have the desired skills and experience. So it's really a screening document. You're just trying to highlight what the target, and that's what we're going to talk about in a second, what the employer, what they're most interested in. So we talked about this last time. If you joined the call, I did a whole thing on personal branding because it's so important to know what your brand is before you go out and market it. Like we said, this is a sales process. And if you were selling any service or item before you just ran out and started telling people about it, you'd want to evaluate what you have and what's your competitive advantage to the other things that are out there. So it's a process of how we market ourselves to others. And if you need to know more than I'm doing right now on the surface, you can go to last month's recording. It demonstrates an understanding of your unique attributes, your strengths, your values, your passions, and how to use them to separate yourself from your competitors. And so you have to know enough about yourself to know this. It's a crowded market out there, particularly now, with the pandemic. So you want to know what makes you unique. And don't say, oh, there's nothing that makes you unique, because the exercise I gave you in last month's series was to have you look back. I'm going to review this for a second. Just look back over your experiences. I know a lot of you have worked for a while and your schooling, and think of the times where you can say, I did a good job and I enjoyed it. Because these are your accomplishments, and it's your accomplishments and the story that you can tell that goes with those accomplishments that make you unique. So you want to make your resume industry and position specific, and use their lingo, because the more focused you can be, that this is, you can look focused on, even though you might have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, when you're doing this resume for a specific job or type of job, you want to look focused on that job. You know, some people think that they can cast a wide net and that would be better because they don't want to miss out on opportunities. And all that does is serve to water down your campaign. And that's certainly not something you want to do. So you want to know your brand again. What is your unique value proposition? What do you bring to the employer? How can your combination of skills, experience, and knowledge make you unique qualified? And what have I accomplished that connects with the position? And this could be academics, it could be anywhere. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, I had that kind of experience, but it was through volunteer work. That doesn't matter whether you were paid for it or not paid for it, it still counts as experience. So once you establish your brand, you want to be consistent with your brand. Let's say you're somebody who always brings the best ideas. You're someone who's responsible. You're someone who they can count on you to get it done. You know, somebody who's analytical. So that's what your brand is. Let's say your brand is being analytical. You want to make sure that you have that on all your methods of communication and all your things for your job search, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your elevator pitch, your interview, and your networking. Because the more you reinforce it, the more strength it has. Okay, the next thing is very important, I can't stress, is to know what your job targets are, right? It's to know who's going to be your audience. And a job target is the industry you're going after, the function that you're looking at, and the geographic area. And the reason you want to make it this specific is that if you do this, a list of companies should fall out of this. And the best way to search is to have that list in front of you every day. And yes, you can apply, look on the website because the website's usually more up to date than a search engine. But also figure out, okay, these are the companies that I need to network into. Because unfortunately, when someone has a terrific resume, the first thing, and they're not getting any traction, the first thing I think of is they're not doing this right. And what tends to happen is they're spending most of their time online, applying to just LinkedIn and, you know, and all kinds of search engines online, Indeed, but they're not networking in. And 10% of people get their jobs online, 80% of people, 10% through employment agencies, and 80% is through networking. So you have to flip it over. You have to flip that over and do more networking. But you want to know where to network into, and that's why you need to have your job target clearly defined. And it's okay to have a plan A, a plan B, and maybe a plan C, but you want to know what those are because different companies will fall out. Anytime you change one of these ingredients, like if you change geographic area, you want to be a marketing person in the communications industry, but you change from New York to Boston, those will be different companies. So I'm going to do a whole networking thing in a few months from now, but I just wanted you to have that. So you want to think outside. If your industry has come to a halt because of the pandemic, many have, event planning, I see a lot of people in the performing arts. You want to think of outside the box of what the new normal will need. So targeting is important. And when people send me their resume and, you know, say, I want to set up a meeting, could you take a look at my resume? I really can't evaluate it before I know your job target because I don't know who your audience is, right? I don't know what you're trying to accomplish with the resume. So it could look beautiful, but if it's not effective for the target, then it's not a good resume. Okay. So why is format so important? Format is important because in the last 10 to 15 years, there's been so many, there's been so much of a presence of companies, you know, advertising online their jobs that there were too many, there were not enough HR people or recruiters to look at them. There weren't enough human eyes. So companies bought applicant tracking systems, or what you can sometimes refer to as ATS systems, in order to manage that high volume of applicants and and identify qualified candidates. So in other words, if I was the recruiter for JP Morgan and I was trying to hire an operations manager, I can't, I would be overwhelmed by the amount of applicants. So I might say, I put this into the computer, I only want to see the top 10% of applicants. So that is why it's so important to know how to get through that ATS system so that you will be evaluated by a recruiter or a hiring manager. So only about 25% of resumes pass through the initial ATS screening process. 75% do not get further consideration due to formatting issues or lack of keywords. So those are the two things. And I just had a conversation this morning with someone who said, I don't know, I'm not getting any hits. And that was the reason. Their formatting was all wrong and it wasn't getting through. And also you have to remember that the research shows that HR people only look at a resume, this is human people, for 6.5 seconds. So it has to be aesthetically pleasing, concise, error-free, and easy to read, right? Because you want to be able to have somebody know what you're saying in a very concise way. And make sure that you just don't rely on spell check, because spell check sometimes does not correct everything. Okay. So strategic resume formatting, keywords matches can increase your chances of getting an interview. It's not one size fits all. I just described 3 different plan A, plan B, and plan C. For each of those plans, you're probably going to have a different resume. Now, it doesn't mean your whole resume is going to be different because you only led one life, but it's what you're emphasizing might be different, and the keywords. So you want to tailor your resume to that position, industry that you're seeking. You want to pack it with the relevant keywords from the job description or skills. Sometimes it's called skills. And your resume should reflect your career interests. So bottom line, one size does not fit all. You can't have this, thinking that it's going to, because you won't have the right keywords. So you want to be very intentional in targeting your resume to the next step in your career. You want to emphasize the relevant and de-emphasize the irrelevant. So you might not have a lot of bullet points on the jobs that are, they're kind of more placeholders. You did this so you want to show that you did this from, for 3 years at one of your jobs, but you might not have to have 6 bullets under it because it's not something that you want to do next. It's not relevant to your aspirational target or what you're trying to do next. Whereas the ones that the job experience that is relevant, that's the one that you want to blow out. If you haven't heard this before, please write it down. For every action, there's a reaction. And this tool called jobscan.co, it's not a typo, it's jobscan.co, is a roadmap for your hard skills and soft skill keywords. So once you get your resume into a shape that you think, okay, this is the one I'm going to go with, you want to use jobscan.co. It's a free tool. You're going to cut and paste your resume on one side. You're going to cut and paste the job description on the other. And within a matter of seconds, it evaluates, JobScan, it will give you a percentage match. And even more important than that, it will tell you, these are the hard skills and these are the soft skills. So it'll say, the resume, the job description said analytical 3 times, but you don't have that on your resume. So if you are analytical, that tells you better put that on your resume if you want to get through the ATS system. So it's a terrific tool. It also, beyond that, will recommend jobs for you. It'll say, well, since you're looking at this job, you might want to consider these others. So very good tool once you get your resume in order to test it before sending it anywhere. The more you can mimic the keywords in the job posting exactly when you have that skill, only when you have that skill, the better off you'll be. So how do you know the keywords in your industry? What you do is once you've settled on your job target, you start reading job descriptions. A good place to go for research is Indeed, not necessarily to apply, but for research. Read job descriptions, and if you read 5 to 6 to 7 job descriptions, the words that repeat themselves on these jobs, like that keep coming up, those are probably the ones that most people who are hiring for that function are looking for. So if you can put them on your resume, then that will be a good thing for you to do. And I'll show you where to put that in a few minutes. So a strategic resume, let's see the top of my screen here. So this is what a resume should look like, the do's and don'ts. It says it should be 1 page. Now that's not always true. We say that mostly for students. Part of this came from more of a student PowerPoint. If you've worked for a while and you have a lot of things that you have to convey, then you could go to 2 pages, but make sure that it's not 1 page and a little blip or a little couple of sentences. If you're going to go 2 pages, it should go at least a page, halfway down the page. So you want to say what you have to say, but in the shortest amount of time, concisely, but don't eliminate important things if you feel that they're important for that job target, right? So it's not always 1 page. You want to remove all italics because this is a computer can't read italics. Remove all underlines. A computer will not read what you've written above an underline. If you're using a bottom border, that's okay, but nothing above an underline. Okay, so check your resume for that. You want to use a standard font. I like 11. If you're trying to cram things in, it's not great, especially if you have an older reader. They're not going to be able to see it. That's, when human eyes read it, but it's just too crammed. Your margin should be anywhere between a half an inch to an inch. And you want to start with reverse chronological order within each section. So for school, it's your most recent. If you have a graduate degree, then if that's your most recent, and then go back in time. Same thing with education. Start with your most recent, go back in time. No headers, footers, text boxes, or charts. I'll show you a visual of that in a minute. The dates are aligned to the right, the month and year. You can set a right tab for that. And you can use borders. Okay. So you can see a little bit more clearly. You should not have a PDF, which is counterintuitive, I think, but if you're sending it directly to a person or a company or hiring manager, yes, PDF format, but not through online applications. You don't want any fancy font or graphic or logos, no tables or text boxes, and no fancy headings. Okay, this kills my graphic arts applicants. They work so hard to distinguish themselves and show their skill, and that's fine and good, but that will come into play later when you're talking to the hiring manager. So you haven't wasted your time. It's just that, unfortunately, going through the applicant tracking system, you have to be plain vanilla. So as sad as that may seem, that's the computer doesn't appreciate graphics. So the formatting is no headers or footers, no photos. I know that a lot of international students, we always see the photos because that's what their resumes look like. We don't do photos here. However, if hopefully you have a LinkedIn account and your LinkedIn is like your other resume. because I'm going to want to look. If I'm a recruiter, I'm not going to just look at your resume. If I'm interested in you, I'm also looking at LinkedIn. So I'm going to see hopefully I'm going to see a good headshot there, and I'm going to see what you say about yourself on LinkedIn. So you remember your brand has to be consistent. No online template. You know, people just pull off a template off the internet. That's not a good thing to do. No paragraphs. A computer can't read text boxes. So it's very nice, you know, that you can write a big text box, but a computer won't read it. And it's actually very hard for a recruiter to read it also, because remember, I just mentioned that your resume is looked at from 6.5 seconds or 7 seconds. I'll give it, 7 seconds. It's hard to read a text. You know, you want to see things just like you would in a, as I said, a sales document, just quick sound bites. Okay, so I hope we're all set there. If not, just, hold your questions and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, I'm going to go through the resume sections one by one. So the first starts with your contact information, obviously very important, or they won't be able to contact you with who is this person with this wonderful resume. So it can be any of these formats. It doesn't really matter. It depends on, you might want to, like Bianca, put it on one line. If you have, if you don't have a lot of room, like Ferris Bueller here has, took up 4 lines because he obviously has space to fill. So you can see the components of it. So you put your name on the top, bold and large, no more than 16 font. 14 is pretty good if you're using 11 for the rest. Simple font, we talked about that. You want to put your cell phone, not your home phone. Most people don't even have home phones anymore, but you want your cell phone on there. A professionally sounding hyperlink, if that's what you're going to use, a hyperlink. The location and zip code. And your LinkedIn URL. Now, let me just say a word about that. When LinkedIn assigns you a URL, it puts all kinds of letters and numbers after your name. So you don't want all that on your resume. So you're going to go into LinkedIn if you have an account, and where it says your URL, it has a little check mark to edit things. You want to take out all those letters and numbers after your name. And now that shortened version of your URL is what you put on your resume. The other thing just to note about contact information is that you don't want to put your street address and your apartment number. It's a crazy world we live in, and no one's writing you. It's not the olden days where people wrote you something, and if they do that, you'll know them already and you give them your address. But you don't know where this resume is going to land. You don't need people knocking on your door. So you don't need that. Just city and zip is enough. Okay, hope that's clear. Okay, here's my favorite section to talk about, and that's your summary or profile. A lot of people don't have it. A lot of people, will the resume go through and get hired without a profile section or summary? Yes. I happen to personally like it because I think it's a great way to use keywords, and it helps. What it is the written form of your elevator pitch. Because once I read your summary, I kind of know who you are and what you're looking for. And as a recruiter, that's very helpful. So it's a great way, as I said, to use keywords. And remember, we said keywords are, in terms of content, that's the way to get through. You want to keep it specific, not, you want to don't have a job target that, like we talked about, that's encompasses too many things. And you want to highlight your strengths, top qualities for the job. Okay. So I'm going to show you one here. I took out the person's name. This is the simplest way I can show it to you. So here's a fellow who actually I worked with, and his job title, I can't see it, it's cut off on mine, but you probably see it says financial analyst. So that's his aspirational title, target. He wants to be a financial analyst. He's never been a financial analyst before, but if you say it at the top, I'm going to start thinking about you that way. And then what he did to get these core competencies is he did some research. He went to Indeed and he put in financial analyst, and he looked at the things that kept repeating themselves, the keywords. And then he put those on the top of his resume in order to get through the applicant tracking system. But you can only put them if you have them. So these are your transferable skills. If you didn't have profit margin analysis and modeling, he couldn't put it on. I mean, you have to be, true to who you are. But any of the ones that you have, you put right up there. So a recruiter doesn't have to go hunting through his experience to say, how does his being in pricing and procurement, how do those skills transfer into my job, which is the job I'm offering, which is financial analyst. So this is just a very simple way of you doing that. Now, I just want to mention something on a way to break with chronology is if your experience for the current target is something that you're not doing currently, but you did it in the past, right? You did it maybe 2 jobs ago or 3 jobs ago. You might want to change your chronology around and put relevant experience, see it's relevant experience, and then other experience or other professional experience. This allows you to break with chronology, and when the recruiter sees it, the first thing that comes up is the experience that's relevant to the job you're going after now. So any questions about that, I'll answer later as well. It's not something that you have to do. I just think it's more effective. So I want to show you some more senior people because I know that there's more senior people on the line here. Sometimes, and this is just showing you different categories that might work for you. I'm not suggesting you put all of these in your profile, but some might be ones that you want to consider. Sometimes a little tagline is good, a sentence or two about your, your experience. Your expertise, that's the keywords, that's always one. And then this person is in a quantitative job, so results are important. She chose to take the results from any of her jobs, they're not job specific, and put them right up front and center. Because this is the stuff you're going to talk about on an interview. And then the last category here is recognized for. So this is your brand. I always kind of like this, what you're recognized for. This is kind of saying, okay, this is wherever I am, this is what I bring. Leadership, strong execution, financial integrity. So these are just possibilities for you to put in your profile section if they work for you. This is another senior person. Now here's an example of something wrong. I didn't write this resume, but you know how he put 542 Garden Street. That's what I said to you. You don't have to do. You don't have to put your address, but be that as it may. Okay. He was a senior marketing executive. He put a little tagline under that. And then his expertise, those are the keywords. And then for him, accomplishments worked better than results. So he chose to take all the accomplishments out of his years of experience and put them right there, so that an employer would surely not miss them. And then he's won some awards. So I'm giving these to you just so that you can say, oh, that might work with me. I've, won a lot of awards. I don't want to, if somebody just scans my computer, they might not see that. So by looking at this, I can practically interview Rich and take the best, this is like his pitch to me. I know, what he's looking for, what are the transferable skills, and what he's proud of, what his brand is. Okay. So back to going through the, after profile, the other parts of the resume. Now, education, I'm going over, but however, once you've worked in the work world, unless you're just out of school for a year, you want to, if you've been working, you should put your employment first, and then education would follow that, because once you're working, that's more, for a recruiter, it's more important for me to see what you've been doing as opposed to I'll get to the education. I want to see where you went to school and what you studied, but it won't be as important as the employment section. Okay. You want to align the school names, left align. This is a student's resume too. I wouldn't put it high school. Once you're in college, high school is not something you put in a resume anymore, even if you're graduating from college. Okay. You want to put it, as we talked about, reverse chronological order. I can't see what this thing says here. 1 second. Yeah, you want to have all the dates, align your dates to the right, align everything else to the left, your school and everything to the left. Okay. You don't want to have any acronyms. You want to spell things out. Bachelor of Business, not BBA. And your month and year. And as you see, reverse chronological order. And you want to have your degree, your major, your minor, and your GPA if it's something that you're proud of talking about, right? I mean, this is not, you don't put your GPA if it's a 2.0. I mean, only put it in if it's something that it's an accomplishment for you. Okay. Coursework. Coursework is really a filler. Leave that far behind if you've been in the work world. If you're a recent graduate that's on this call, you haven't worked and you're just coming out of school like last year, you have really nothing else to say, then I guess some coursework. But to me as a recruiter, it never meant anything because I don't know how you did in these courses. I don't know the content of these courses because I didn't go to PACE. I don't know the curriculum. I don't even know if you attended them. So, if you have nothing else to put it in, I guess put it in, but it's not really as meaningful as any work experience, unless it's course projects that you did where you're actually doing something as part of your curriculum. Then that's another story. That's experience, even if it's not for pay. So you want to list it, no more than 4 to 8. Look this again. Related to your major or industry. Okay. That's not long. That's good. So my computer just froze. Okay, you want to put the course names, not the course numbers. And that's about it. Now, academic projects is something to talk about, I think. I mean, I hate to down the course numbers, but academic projects, a lot of people have not had professional jobs. I'm not talking to my more recent graduates on the call. You haven't had professional jobs because, look, you've had to make money. COVID's come, knocking at our door. So you want to blow up the academic projects because even though you did it as part of a course, you still had experience doing it. Like in this case, this person had experience doing these models, cash flow, and also risk analysis. So some, academic projects that you're given during school are meaty, and just because you haven't done it for a company doesn't mean that you can't talk about it and use that experience, going forth in your next job. So it's a great way to use keywords again, and 1 to 3 significant class projects related to a major or position would be terrific. But as I said, if for those who are seasoned, you're not going to go all the way back to school if that was 10 years ago to talk about academic projects. Okay, so your experience, you want to have that all aligned to the left, the name of the company and where it was, and your title, and some bullets some bullet points, not more than 5, 6 bullet points. It starts to look like a laundry list. It really is not a good thing, even though you don't want to, people say, but I did this too, and I did this too. But remember, this is just to get you the interview. Believe me, if you get the interview, you're going to have time to talk about all the, especially when you get to the hiring manager and where the technical people are, you're going to be able to talk about everything as much as they want to know in detail. So the employer title, reverse chronology, same thing as the education. Now, if you've had multiple positions in the same company, what you want to do is you want to put that under, you don't list the company twice, you list the company once, and then list the jobs under that company, because what it does is it shows progression. It shows that you're have more staying power. You've been with the place for a long time, so they must think highly of you. And also, if you've advanced in that company, then it shows it's a good thing. It shows something good about yourself, and it's more easy to see that if it's so this guy from Citi, this person from Citibank started as an intern, and now he's an associate. Then he went to an associate. So that just shows that this company thought highly of him, and the employer, it makes your next employer feel more comfortable that you're somebody who's promotable. Again, city, state, and dates of employment on the right. Okay, activities. This is an optional section. Some people feel that if you should put it in because if that person that you happen to run across was in the same club or had the same interest, that might get you the job. I honestly doubt it. Now, this is leadership is a different story. Leadership is something that it shows that you've stayed with something, that you've devoted a lot of time to it. People thought enough about you to vote you as editor or president or something. So leadership is an important thing, and it's an important thing in business to be a leader. So I usually have people separate out the leadership from other volunteer kinds of experience. But, truth be told, if you devoted years of something and you got a black belt in something, or you played competitive violin or something that showed years of hard work, that's something to mention. But just joining a club is not, to me, going to make a difference in terms of you getting a job. It's my personal opinion. Okay. Say blue points indicate leadership positions. Okay, now skills. So skills, when we say skills, we're talking about a different skills than that was on the profile section. The profile section was transferable skills to the job. These are more computer skills, and languages are usually under the skills section here. Now, the only exception to this is when you are a tech person, like for the people who graduated from Seidenberg. And these technical skills are your transferable skills. I mean, that's what the target is most looking for. Without these, you're not getting a job. So you want to move these up to the profile section, or somewhere at the top, because a resume should always be written from the most important to the least important. That's why things like activities are at the bottom. You don't want someone's eyes to scan this and miss this. So technical skills go up to the top for people who are technical people, because it's job related. But if you just know, and let's say Adobe Photoshop, something that's related to your job, if you're a graphic person and you need to know Adobe Photoshop, it says in the job interview, then you put that as one of your skills right on top in the profile section. But if it's just, computer skills like the Microsoft Office suite, then these can go on the bottom. They just want to make sure you're computer savvy. Okay. So we're saying Dyson and Lubin, skills at the end of the resume, Seidenberg, skills after education, set the top half, Okay, interests, same here. You know, some people put it if you have nothing else to put, but look, singing opera 8 years, that's interesting. I mean, it shows it wouldn't be as important as if I'm looking for a marketing person and they had a marketing job. I'd rather know about that, but if you have the room and it's something that it's important to you, it's part of your life, part of your brand, then put it on. It's optional, but could be recommended. So let's look at those bullet points for a second. So a bullet point is the way you start your bullet points is to have an action verb, what you did or what the situation was, and the result, how you did it. So this was the situation, this is what I did, and this was the result. So an action verb, I'm going to show you some of those in a minute. So it's skills you want to showcase. I managed, led, supervised, oversaw. And the accomplishment, you know, what did you do? And the result. As a result of that, a lot of people leave this out. As a result of that, this is what happened. And if you can quantify it, that's great. So here's some examples. Managed all social media content for a restaurant on Facebook, Twitter, company website that resulted in, they didn't just manage it, but it resulted in a 25% increase in reservations. Provided excellent customer service to guests that resulted in superior dining experience, return on patronage. So it's action, sometimes we call it STAR method, situation, task, you know, and the action and the result. Okay. So here's some great action verbs. If you want to just take a picture of this with your camera, if you have one. If not, these things are recorded and I always make the PowerPoints available to anyone who joined. So, you know, let's say you've been saying the same one all the time. Led, how many times can you say led? How many times can you say analyzed? Here are some other ways, some other good, strong verbs that you might want to switch up, particularly in the business world. So it's something that you should, you know, just make note of to refer to if you want to look over your bullet points again. Okay. You can't memorize these. If you memorize these, wow, it's incredible. Okay. So here's what I used to call, I call live it in black and white and tell it in color. So here, before and after. Before, file documents in a new filing system. After, this is the same person, the same idea, trying to convey the same idea. Revamped agency filing system leading to increased efficiency to locate documents. So they're filing documents, but this is, you know, looking at the broader impact. You know, certainly you can see the after is more impressive. Assisted with a newsletter, what does that mean? I don't know what part you played in assisting. Did you bring the newsletter from here to there and did you just carry it over? Or developed an engaging entertainment section of a monthly newsletter, which increased readership by 800. Now, a lot of people are reluctant to say that because they say, I didn't do it myself. There were other people. That's okay. You can explain that later, that it wasn't you. You're just trying to get the interview and you did develop it. It was, you know, team effort, but you played a part in it. So put developed, because assisted is a very weak word. Entered contact information of consultants into a database or created worldwide database of 500 consultants. So it shows the scope of this using Microsoft Access to track overseas activities. So it's more of what it really entailed and the scope of what you did and what the impact was. Okay. Action words, accomplishments, and result. And quantify where you can. Yes, I showed you this before, and the only reason I showed it was going to show it to you again was we already talked about putting relevant experience in front of other experience to break with chronology so that you can get your most things that would be most interested to the target up front. Now, I just want to talk about this because I know I have a lot of more senior people on the call, and I get this question all the time. Oh God, I'm up, up against ageism. Ageism. They feel very down on their. They lack confidence because they feel that that's against them. Is there ageism out there? Absolutely. I mean, there's no question about it. So, but there's still ways to combat this in the marketplace. In fact, I heard a quote that said, ageism is the only prejudice that goes away with time, because we all get older. So one, do not use an old email address, right? I see AOL.com or an email address that is something that a lot of people don't, younger people don't use anymore. When email first came out, we had things like this. As soon as I see that, I know I'm going to deal with an older person. Two, why are people afraid to hire older people? What's the prejudice? The prejudice is that we can't learn, and I'm putting myself in the category, technology. We can't learn technology, all right? We're frightened of technology. So if you can add any technology that you've, kept abreast with, and new skills or certifications at the top of your education section, that would be terrific. And if you're not working now, if you can, there's plenty of things you can get online to keep current, to keep the fact that you're learning and growing. Okay. It used to be, the third bullet point is, it used to be great. The more years you could put, over 25 experience, over 30 years of experience doing something, people used to think that was a good thing. Now it's not, unfortunately, because you get a lot of, I'm going to be prejudiced, a lot of younger hiring managers who are scared to death of someone with 25 years experience, or think that that's during the dark ages and it's not relevant to today's world anyway. So 10 years is enough experience, or 15 at the most. But I wouldn't go ahead and market myself that way, because ageism does exist. And in some industries, I mean, academia is one of them that, hey, the more the merrier. That's a great, but if you're going to be the marketing person at Pepsi, forget it. It's not going to be in your favor. So you want to remove any jobs that are more than 10 years old, unless they are very relevant to the job you're seeking. So in my case, I worked in a university when I first got out of graduate school. Then I went into the business world. I never mentioned that on any resume, but when I was coming back to academia, I put that right on my summary, right on that, summary profile, because I wanted people to know I had been there. I had experienced that. So my final notes: keyword optimization, keywords. You want to have the right keywords. Make sure your resume is positioned for the target. Do not rely solely on spell check. Typographical errors will just kick you right out the door. Remove any personal information like birthday, religion, age. Don't cram too much information onto one page. If these are things that you have to say, go to a second page. Obviously, I'm hoping I'm saying this obviously, don't falsify your experience. Remove references from putting on your resume. It's not a thing you do anymore in a resume, and you don't want your references, you don't want the names of your references particularly on there, because you want to be able to have that at the end that they look at after they're about to hire you. And you want to be able to prep your references in terms of what kind of job, that you're getting and what these people might be looking for. So you want to not have somebody be calling your references when they just got your resume. And continue to build your resume by adding skills and accomplishments. So that's my sorry, I've eaten up a lot of this hour.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Yeah, if we may address that couple of questions which we received in advance of this session, and people actually were asking how to deal with the long gaps in their careers, like 12-month gap, for example.
It's not easy. I'm not going to tell you that, that's not an issue. However, the first thing you want to do is, if there's like a perfect example is a woman who's taken time off to have children, there's usually a gap. So what, when I'm working with them, what I try to do is say, is there anything that they were doing that could be that they were gaining skills or showing that they were involved in something? Maybe it's the PTA, but maybe they were the treasurer of the PTA. That still counts. Or they were working in someone's business. They were working in their husband's business. That still counts as work experience. You have to make the most of what you had. Maybe you're getting certifications during that time. So you put that in the gap period. It's if you switch it chronologically, it's not going to take away the gap. But remember I had talked about relevant versus other experience. If you switch it around, it's not as evident. It doesn't hit the recruiter right in the eye, because if you had a relevant experience that was 2 jobs ago, you can put that right front and center. So a gap is hard. I think people are a little bit more because of COVID. A lot of people's career paths have just been decimated. But, I've talked about this before. If you upskilled a little bit during COVID, that would have been a great thing to show that you were doing something that was you were trying to increase your worth and your skill level by upskilling, taking a certification course or whatever. But a gap is something that's, tricky to get around. It won't eliminate you. Don't give up, but it's just makes it a little more difficult.
Right. Thank you. And this is the awesome question from Catalina here in the chat. And she asks, so overall, do you recommend catering your resume to each individual job you apply to?
Well, of course, that would make it a lot of work. Not necessarily, although if it's your dream job or these are 5 jobs that you really want, yeah, the more you can match the keywords, the better chance. I'm not saying change the body of your resume, but in the profile section, if you can customize the keywords to just use their words, what the job description is saying, the better chances you have. However, if it's a broad function and you're trying to, let's say, be a PR, a public relations person, and you've got 20 companies, just do the basic keywords that you see when you've researched the ones that repeat themselves. So it doesn't have to be totally customized each time. That would be a yeoman's task. It would be just too much to ask. But for the ones you're really interested in, put it through jobscan.co and try to match it as much as possible. But as they said, we're not doing the body of the resume so much, unless you want to emphasize things, in bold. That's one way to emphasize something, that when someone scans it, a human, that they won't miss it, is to bold something. Otherwise, just use those keywords.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I guess maybe we have time for one more question. This is from Sandesh here. I'm looking for software engineer positions, he says. And my question is, does freelance experience as a software engineer counts as work experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've been working. I mean, it doesn't matter that you don't have a contract with a company per se, but it's experience. I mean, freelance, volunteer experience, this is all experience. It shows that you know the jargon of the company. It certainly counts. It certainly counts. So if you can do that, you can do part-time work, even volunteer work, freelance work, absolutely put that in.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much.